I will call my dad. The words drop into the middle of the first-grade classroom, soft but heavy enough to freeze time. Picture the scene, pencils, stop scratching paper. Over by the window, some kid literally forgets how to inhale. The teacher, Emily Hayes, is standing over little Sophia Moretti, with her hand held out like she is waiting for a toll. She demands the phone, reminding the kid about the rules. Sophia just sits there, clutching that piece of plastic like it is a lifeline. Emily asks again, keeping her voice completely level. She figured out a long time ago that speaking quietly twice hits way harder than yelling once. Let us hit pause for a second, guys, because this is where the heartbreak hides. Emily is wearing her sleeves pulled all the way down. Even though it is warm outside, under that gray turtleneck she is hiding a fresh ugly bruise shaped exactly like a thumb. Sophia looks up, and let me tell you, those are not the eyes of a guilty 6-year-old. Those are the cold, calculating eyes of someone deciding if this adult is worth trusting. She quietly explains that her mom is dead, her dad is coming early, and she just wanted to reread his text. The words practically punch Emily right in the chest, but she holds her ground. Emily insists that the rules are the rules, but she offers a compromise: she will hold the phone. But Sophia can use the office landline to make her call. Sophia just stares at her. It is that heavy, exhausted look two adults give each other when they are calculating the cost of a bad deal. On a little kid it should look ridiculous, but on Sophia it just looks devastatingly tired. She finally hands over the device, softly stating that her dad will come. And here is the kicker: she is not making a threat, and she is not throwing a tantrum. It is just a simple, undisputed fact of her universe. It is the absolute certainty of a kid who has never, not even once, seen her father fail to show up. Emily tucks the phone away and pivots straight to math class. Time drags on, math finishes, spelling wraps up, but during silent reading, Emily looks up and notices Sophia is not reading at all. She is just staring at the clock, tracking the second hand like a sniper. Emily gives in, writing out a hall pass, and softly telling the girl to head to the front office to make that call. Sophia takes that little slip of paper with both hands. It breaks your heart a little, seeing her hold it like it is the most precious object in the world. So Sophia marches down this cheery hallway, right past the construction paper sons, gripping that hall pass like a shield. What nobody in that school realizes is the insane timing of the universe. At that exact second, a pitch-black Cadillac Escalade is rolling out of a heavily guarded garage in Manhattan, merging onto the Brooklyn Bridge, and tearing eastward. Back in the office, the secretary, Mrs. Thompson, flashes a huge grandmotherly smile. She treats the little ones like visiting royalty. Sophia sets the pass down on the desk, both hands again, and formally announces that her teacher gave her permission to call her dad. The secretary slides the heavy receiver across the desk, completely unaware of the absolute force of nature sitting on the other end of the line. Sophia dials 10 digits purely from memory, hitting every button with total precision. 2 rings later, a man answers. His voice is dangerously low, the kind of voice that never has to yell to get exactly what it wants. Over in Manhattan, Nicholas Moretti is sitting at the head of a massive conference table, surrounded by 5 guys in dark suits arguing over shipping logistics. But the second he saw the school caller ID, he just raised one hand. The entire room went dead silent. That silence in the boardroom is heavy enough to crush a normal guy. Sophia quietly explains that her phone was confiscated, swearing she did not do anything wrong. Nicholas immediately asks if the teacher punished her, when Sophia says no, and actually defends Emily by calling her nice. 3 agonizing seconds of pure dead air follow. Listen to me. Those 3 seconds are all it takes for 5 hardened mobsters to realize the shipping business is officially on hold. Nicholas tells his daughter to put the secretary on the line. The sweet old lady takes the phone, practically singing her cheerful greeting. Completely unprepared for what happens next, she just stops. Watch the secretary's face. It is a masterclass in realizing you are out of your depth. Over about 12 seconds, her warm smile decays into shock, then caution, and finally, absolute terrified submission. She has to grab the edge of her desk just to keep her knees from giving out. She stammers out an apology, promising they will be waiting for him, and hands the phone back to Sophia like it is a live grenade. Nicholas tells his little girl he is on the way, ordering her to go back to class and behave. Sophia agrees, hangs up, and heads back to the classroom, where Emily is busy helping a kid named Mason struggle through a reading lesson. Sophia walks back in, gives a tiny solemn nod, and sits down. Emily smiles back instinctively, but as she moves, her sleeve shifts just a fraction of an inch. That sharp pain in her wrist reminds her that her friendly teacher smile is completely fake. Her brain suddenly flashes back to the nightmare of the previous night. Her brother-in-law, Frank, stumbling through the front door at 1 a.m, reeking of booze and $3,000 in debt from some underground poker. Let's hit pause for a second and just look at Emily's nightmare. You and I both know the hero usually calls the cops, right? But here is the bitter, twisted joke of it all. She cannot make that call. Why? Because the very monster making Tommy rock and cry with his hands over his ears is legally his guardian. Her mom handed Frank the keys to the kingdom right before cancer stole her voice and her choices. Emily was just 22 back then. A Brooklyn college kid with no standing and empty pockets. Now Tommy is 8, he is autistic. And the state system would break him into a million pieces before a judge ever heard their case. So she is trapped in this silent war, desperately hoarding every single dime to scrape together $15,000 for a lawyer. She is sitting on exactly $4,800 in a hidden account that Frank does not even know exists. She glances up at the clock, completely unaware that in roughly 18 minutes, her entire life is about to jump the tracks. It is 1:47 in the afternoon. Then comes the knock at her classroom door. Stick with me here, because this is where it gets crazy. It is a slow, measured knock, 3 heavy beats. The kind of knock from a guy who has never had to rush a single day in his life. Emily puts down her marker, pulls open the door. And there stands Principal David Wallace. The guy is smiling, but his eyes are screaming in absolute terror. Behind him, a man over 6 feet tall, draped in a flawless gray suit. Picture this guy walking into a tiny second-grade classroom. He is wearing a heavy black wool coat that falls down to his knees. Utterly unbothered by the world around him, his eyes are the cold, flat color of gunmetal. Peeking out from his bright white cuff is a watch that costs more than Emily's entire car, sitting there quietly like a wedding band. He does not smile, he does not have to. The whole room just freezes solid. One kid in the second row drops his pencil, and the tiny click of graphite hitting the floor echoes like a gunshot. And then little Sophia stands up. She does not run to him like a normal kid. She glides over with this eerie inherited confidence. He drops a massive hand onto her head, a silent claim of absolute ownership. You okay, princess? He asks her. She points right at Emily and says, Miss Hayes took my phone. Listen up, guys. Every single eye in that room snaps straight to Emily. You can literally see her pulse hammering in her neck. But watch how the big bad wolf handles this. Nicholas Moretti turns to this broke, terrified teacher and gives her a slow, formal bow. Like a ghost stepping out of a century where manners actually meant something. He introduces himself, and Emily, she does not crumble. She stares right back into those gunmetal eyes and tells him the cold, hard facts. The kid broke the rules, so the phone went in the desk. But when she realized the kid was in trouble, she wrote her a pass to the front office. She played it tough, but she played it completely fair. Pause it right here. You and I need to look at this guy closely. He is a mob boss, okay? He takes people apart for a living, but right now, he is taking apart a first-grade teacher's story, looking for the lie. He doesn't flinch. When she finishes, he just nods. The poor teacher practically stops sweating. Then he looks at his kid. Did you know the rule? He asks. Yes. Was the teacher right? A tiny pause. Then the kid admits it. Yes. Now here's the twist that gets you right in the gut. He asks for the confiscated phone. He holds it. The ultimate power move. Then he gives it back to his daughter. It's not about the phone. It's about showing who really grants permission in this room. Notice how he doesn't just pocket the phone. He tells his kid that the teacher's law is absolute. It's a brilliant play, really. He's teaching respect while holding all the cards. Then the principal chimes in, sweating bullets. Desperate to announce that this guy funded the whole school, the library, the labs. Emily freezes. Her smile just locks into place. She knows the name Moretti. Everyone does. The guy is on the news for waterfront deals, and more importantly, for federal probes that magically disappear without a single charge. The bitter irony here. The principal thinks he's saving the teacher by warning her, but he's actually throwing her straight into the shark tank. She just nods, terrified, thanking a ghost for his money. Watch this power dynamic flip. Moretti shakes his head, completely gentle. He says he isn't there as a donor but as a father. Boom. The entire room just sinks under the weight of that statement. You've got little kids forgetting how to breathe. He drops down to his daughter's eye level, his expensive coat dragging on cheap school floors. Did you eat? Did you work? Good. Then you stay until 3 o'clock. That's the tragic beauty of this guy. He runs the criminal underworld. Yet he desperately wants his kid to have a normal Tuesday. He leaves his hand on her shoulder for just a second. Thanks, the terrified teacher, and walks out. The lesson here: sometimes the most dangerous men are the ones who understand simple manners better than anyone else. The door clicks shut, and the silence in that room is absolutely deafening. Some brave idiot kid in the back finally whispers that Sophia's dad is rich, and Sophia, she just picks up her pencil and says he's just her dad. It breaks your heart, right? She has no idea she's sitting on a throne of blood money. Meanwhile, Emily is gripping a piece of chalk while her hand shakes out of its mind. Fast forward to 3 o'clock. The bell rings. The chaos of dismissal fades, and there's Sophia, zipped up to her chin, waiting. A massive black SUV is idling out front. A silent guy in a dark suit opens the door. It's so ridiculously cinematic, but for this little girl, it's just a normal ride home. The contrast is what truly kills you. Hit pause here, because you and I are about to see everything change. Sophia climbs into the beast of a car and gives this perfectly polite little wave. Moretti is in the back. The window rolls down just 2 inches. He stares at Emily, not smiling, just logging her face into that dangerous mental vault of his. Emily is left standing on the school steps, completely frozen as the taillights vanish. But inside that car, the real gut punch lands. 6 blocks of total silence, then Sophia, without even looking away from the glass, drops a bomb. She tells her dad that Miss Hayes wore long sleeves on a hot day, and that she saw a bruise on her wrist. The innocence of a child pointing out violence to a man who literally orchestrates it. Just devastating. Moretti is literally in the middle of a phone call. He stops. He looks at his little girl in the mirror. He asks if she's sure, and she confirms it. She even noticed the teacher flinching when a water pitcher spilled. Now watch Moretti. He doesn't rage. He just stares out the window. Then he tells his loyal driver to get a full dossier on Emily Hayes. He wants everything. The irony is staggering. The bad guy is stepping up to protect the innocent teacher. Meanwhile, cut to Emily's miserable reality. A dingy walk-up apartment smelling of stale dinners. Her little boy is drawing perfect squares on the floor, completely locked in his own world. Barely acknowledging her. She spends her life protecting other people's kids, but she comes home to this crushing isolation. Of course, Frank isn't home. He's probably blowing cash they desperately need. Emily knows his toxic patterns like she knows when it will rain. She heats up plain pasta, keeping the sauce separate because her kid needs it exactly that way. Then comes the real horror show. She checks her bank. $247 to her name, and rent is $1,200. She drops her head into her hands, defeated by the math of poverty. And right then, the camera cuts to the absolute opposite end of the universe. The 42nd floor of a luxury tower. Manhattan is sparkling like a diamond. The contrast is almost insulting. She's drowning over pennies, and Moretti practically owns the sky. Let's zoom in on Moretti. He's sitting there with a ridiculously expensive scotch he isn't even drinking. His guy drops a massive file on the desk. They have the 27-year-old teacher's background, and they have the stepfather's file too. The driver warns him to read the stepfather's file first. You already know it's going to be ugly. Now jump to Monday morning at 7:15 a.m. Emily walks out with her coffee, totally unaware that the world has shifted. There's a huge black luxury car across the street. She completely brushes it off because she's too exhausted to be paranoid. Tuesday, same car Wednesday, it swaps to a black Suburban. The machine is moving around her, silently building a wall, and she's just trying to survive her commute. Now you and I get to watch her slowly put the puzzle together. Wednesday's guy is built like a tank, but here's the brilliant, creepy detail. It's not the giant cars that tip her off. It's the fact that these men absolutely refuse to look at her. Every guy on her street usually stares. Right, it's human nature. But these guys are disciplined, they're stone-cold statues. She walks right past the window, practically close enough to smell their coffee, and the guy doesn't even blink. That's the exact moment the panic sets in. Her instincts finally scream that something is wrong. By the time she gets to her classroom, she's a complete wreck. She can't stop staring out the windows. It's a terrible lesson. Sometimes, the deadliest threats are the ones that ignore you completely. All day long, Emily is losing her mind. Spelling class, she checks the lot. Math class, she checks the street. She thinks she's hiding it. But 20 little kids see everything. After the bell rings, Sophia stays behind and asks if she's okay. Emily tries to brush it off. But Sophia drops this chilling line. She says her dad taught her that people who stare at windows are waiting for something bad to arrive. Look at the tragedy here. This tiny 6-year-old girl has the survival instincts of a combat veteran. Emily is paralyzed. She asks Sophia what her dad actually does, and the kid gives the most heartbreakingly pure answer imaginable. She says he builds buildings and helps people with big problems. Emily practically chokes on a laugh. The irony is just staggering. It's the funniest, most painfully accurate summary of a mafia boss ever spoken. He solves problems. Yeah, he really does. Then Sophia pulls out a folded piece of paper from her bag. It's a drawing, a little school, a tall stick figure, and a tiny stick figure holding hands. Emily asks the obvious question, is this you and your dad? And Sophia says no, it's you and me. Because Emily stands by that door every single day to keep them safe. This is where the story reaches right in and rips your heart out. Emily is stalked by gangsters in the street, getting beaten at home, and barely holding her life together. Yet to this little girl, she's a superhero. Emily fights back tears, overwhelmed by the crushing weight of a child's pure blind gratitude. She gives the kid a hug, just for a couple of seconds, because that's all the warmth she can afford. Then the scene cuts, and it's a pure nightmare. Wednesday night, Emily walks into her apartment, and the air reeks of cheap whiskey. Frank is glued to the couch. A bottle practically empty on his lap, he demands money. She tells him payday is Friday. He calls her a liar and stands up. This is the sick, predictable cycle of abuse. Emily doesn't even have to think. Her body reacts because it has memorized the routine of violence. He shoves her into the wall. Her little boy starts shrieking in the other room. She drops to the floor and covers her head, bracing for the impact. He kicks her right in the ribs. The saddest part is how routine it all feels to her. No one is coming. He screams garbage at her, steals her last $40 and slams the door. Emily just lies there on the floor. She waits until her son's screaming turns into exhausted crying. She drags herself up, goes to his room, and lies to him. She says everything is fine. The poor kid is just rocking, obsessively counting his fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 now. You and I need to look closely at the final shot. Emily stares out the window. That dark Suburban is still parked out there. The mobster inside isn't looking up, he's just a shadow. But suddenly the irony clicks into place. The monsters waiting outside her house aren't there to hurt her. They're there to hunt the monster living inside it. For the first time, the sight of a mafia enforcer makes her feel completely safe. Let's hit pause for a second. Picture Emily, a teacher staying late on a Friday just to avoid going home to her own personal nightmare. Frank. She's walking to her Honda Civic, exhausted, dreading the front door suddenly, footsteps behind her now. You and I know that jump, that instinctual, terrified leap in her throat. 5 years with Frank programmed her body to react to a shoe, scraping the pavement like a blaring air raid siren. The bitterest part isn't the fear. It is that she expects it. She turns, bracing for the monster, but instead, there is a middle-aged guy in a dark overcoat, 10 feet back. His hands are up, palms out, exactly the way you'd show a beaten shelter dog that you aren't going to kick it. Life teaches us that sometimes. Our scars make us flinch at an open hand. The guy speaks, and it is almost polite. He apologizes for scaring her and hands over a plain cream envelope from Mr. Moretti. No Mafia logo, no wax seal, just a simple drop. He tells her it is just information, no strings attached, and wanders back to a dark sedan. Emily sits in her car for 2 agonizing minutes, staring at the paper like a ticking bomb. Finally, she opens it. The message is just 6 flawless words. Coffee tomorrow. 4:15, I will be outside, no name, no phone number. Because absolute power doesn't need an introduction. By Saturday afternoon, she is staring at her own fractured reflection in the staff bathroom mirror. The irony here, the only time she gets asked out, it is by the city's most dangerous shadow. Power never begs, it just waits. She tells herself she is just at school on a Saturday for a bulletin board project. Right, we all tell ourselves little lies to survive. She is wearing a thick charcoal turtleneck, not to dress up for a mob boss, but because the ugly bruise Frank left on her collarbone isn't done healing. At 4:12 she walks out. The black Escalade is already waiting. Doors unlocked. 3 heavy seconds pass on the curb. She is standing at the edge of the abyss, and then she just steps right in. Nicholas is waiting inside with 2 coffees, offering one without a single word. He admits he wasn't sure she would show. She wasn't either. The driver, Marco, glides the heavy tank of a car away. Here is the tragic joke: the safest she has felt in months is in the back seat of a getaway car. Look at this framing. The setting sun is turning the Brooklyn trees to pure gold. A beautiful backdrop for a very dark conversation. Nicholas stares straight ahead, completely deadpan, and drops the disclaimer. She is not in trouble, not in danger, and owes him absolutely zero. So why is she in a gangster's SUV? Because of a little girl, his daughter. He tells Emily how she stood by the door. How she actually saw a child's anxiety and treated it like a real human problem. Emily brushes it off, saying she was just doing her job. But Nicholas hits her with the cold truth not everyone does. The silence that follows is deafening. The heartbreaking reality is that a simple act of basic human decency is so incredibly rare that it bought her a Mafia kingpin's absolute protection. As the park rolls by, Emily finally asks the burning question, why are his cars stalking her apartment? Nicholas doesn't play dumb. He flat out says they are there to make sure nobody bothers her. Emily calls it out, men like him don't do favors for free. And this is where we hit pause, guys. This is the emotional fatal spot. Nicholas gives this small, exhausted smile. The first real crack in his stone mask. He tells her about a teacher who kept him late when he was 8 years old. Hiding him in the library until 6 because his own father was a violent drunk. He never forgot her. Do you see the tragedy? The ruthless crime boss is just a terrified 8-year-old boy, trying to save the one person who reminds him of his only childhood sanctuary. Our traumas dictate our acts of mercy. The Escalade slows down in front of a quiet cafe. Nicholas looks right into her eyes and delivers a line that hits like a freight train. He isn't asking for anything. He just needs her to know those dark sedans aren't watching her. They are watching the monsters hiding in her life. Emily steps out onto the pavement, completely stunned. And notice this detail, the coffee in her hand has cooled to the exact perfect temperature for her to drink. He even controlled that. Fast forward to Monday recess. Emily's phone buzzes with an unknown number. But she already knows who it is. She retreats to the old oak tree by the loading dock, hiding from the world, you see. True power doesn't scream for your attention. It whispers from an unsaved number and expects you to answer it immediately. Let's listen in on this phone call, because you and I both know the tension here is insane. Nicholas's voice is completely flat as he lists off Frank's gambling debts, $84,000 spread across card rooms, bookies, and a Staten Island loan shark. Emily leans against the tree and shuts her eyes. The gut punch isn't that Frank is a degenerate. It is that someone finally bothered to look at her nightmare. Then Nicholas asks the million-dollar question. Why hasn't she called the cops on her abuser? The answer breaks your heart. It is all for her autistic brother, Tommy. Her mother named Frank as guardian before anyone knew what a monster he truly was. The irony is suffocating. The law, designed to protect the innocent, is the exact weapon trapping them in pure hell. Emily spells out the grim reality of Tommy's world. He needs his exact routines, the specific apartment, his sheets, his perfectly lined-up spoons. If Frank gets locked up, Tommy gets tossed into the meat grinder of the state foster system, bouncing between strangers. He would literally not survive it, so why not fight for legal custody? Because justice has a huge price tag, $15,000 for a lawyer. Emily has scraped together $4,800 over 3 brutal years, and Frank steals it whenever his bets go bad. Are you feeling the trap yet? She is drowning in inches of water. Nicholas listens to this absolute tragedy, lets a heavy silence fall, and casually offers to erase the problem in 48 hours. The legal system takes years, but street justice is fast. Emily throws the lifeline right back in his face. Why? Because she knows there is no such thing as a free favor with the mob. She tells him straight up that she doesn't know the true cost of his help. And guys, look at Nicholas's reaction here. The Mafia boss actually shifts his tone, offering this quiet, genuine respect. He calls her smart. She fires back that she is just surviving. Back in his penthouse, Nicholas stares out at the cold, glowing grid of Manhattan. His hitman Marco steps in, practically begging to pull the trigger on Frank, pointing out that Emily is the only person who has ever turned down their help. She didn't ask for a dime, she just wanted to be left alone, the tragic irony. Her refusal to play the game is exactly what makes Nicholas want to protect her. Let's jump to that night. Emily is meticulously lining up macaroni on Tommy's plate, keeping his fragile world in perfect order. The kid is humming. Peace, then the front door violently smashes open. Frank stumbles in, reeking of cheap whiskey and dangerous paranoia, demanding to know about the black SUV. Notice what Emily does immediately. She physically shields Tommy and nudges him into his room, prepared to take the beating, so her brother doesn't have to watch. Frank accuses her of having a boyfriend, his face turning red as he raises his hand to strike. Emily just closes her eyes. She accepts her fate, but the fatal blow never lands instead. The apartment door is ripped entirely off its hinges. Sometimes the only thing that stops a monster is a bigger predator. Before Frank's hand can even drop, 3 men in tailored dark suits are already standing in the kitchen. The speed is terrifying. The youngest guy, built like a brick wall, snatches Frank's wrist in midair and violently twists it down without making a single sound. Another smoothly slides right between Frank and Emily, but the chilling part, the older guy with silver hair doesn't even pull a gun. He doesn't raise his voice a single decibel. He just calmly informs Frank that they need to have a little conversation. Frank stammers out a pathetic demand to know who they are, his fake tough guy persona instantly shattering. The silver-haired man simply calls it a meeting. When true power enters the room, it never has to shout. The bullies of the world crumble fast when they meet a real shadow. Look at Frank's pathetic face in this moment. His eyes dart to Emily, wanting to blame her for this intrusion, but his cowardice fully takes over. A tiny nudge from the enforcer, and Frank walks out of his own broken door in complete humiliated silence. Emily is left standing in her wrecked kitchen, hands shaking so violently she has to pin them to her legs. Little Tommy creeps back out, silently clutching the hem of her cardigan. The silence in that room is heavier than the violence was then. The older man, Sal Lombardi, gives Emily a polite, respectful bow. He introduces himself as the consigliere and apologizes for the mess. The absolute irony is staggering. This crime syndicate treats her with more dignity in 5 seconds than her family did in 5 years. All right, hit pause right here, guys. You and I need to look at the absolute irony of this scene. Emily just found out the mob has been stalking her apartment for 11 days. A guy sitting in a car, listening for broken glass, listening for her pain, and she sinks into that kitchen chair completely paralyzed. Why? Because she cannot decide if she is angry about being watched, or desperately grateful that somebody in this cold city finally cared enough to listen. That is the tragedy of Emily. When the suited enforcer tells her Frank is being taken to the boss, and that nobody will get hurt. You can almost hear her heart breaking. She is trading a domestic monster for a mafia one, and the saddest part, she actually feels safer. Notice that tiny word, anymore. The enforcer drops that little detail and just walks out, shutting the door like he is tucking in a baby, which is terrifying in its own way. Now the director cuts to Red Hook, a warehouse so polite and empty. It practically screams that bad things happen here. Frank is sweating bullets under a single overhead light, hands glued to the table like a scolded schoolboy. Across from him sits Nicholas Moretti, dark suit, no tie, looking less like a gangster and more like a grim reaper with a corporate account. Nicholas just asks if Frank knows who he is. And guys, the sweat running down Frank's temple in that freezing room, it tells you everything. He knows he is a dead man walking, even if no blood flows. This is where the movie goes from a basic thriller to a masterclass in psychological destruction. Nicholas slides a thick folder across the table, making Frank open his own financial grave. It is all there, every shady bet, every backroom poker game, the shark on Todd Hill, $84,327. Frank stammers, asking how he knows this, and Nicholas delivers the kill shot without raising his voice. Because I own all of it. Watch Frank's face here. All the tough guy act drains right out of him. Nicholas flips to the last page, showing a giant red stamp of ownership. He didn't bring Frank here to beat him up. He bought the man's entire miserable existence, reducing a human life to ink on a ledger. Let's take a closer look together, guys. You and I need to appreciate the absolute overkill of this move. Nicholas did not just buy the gambling debts. He bought Frank's credit cards. He bought the building Frank lives in. He literally bought the ground this guy walks on. Frank's hands are visibly shaking now, and Nicholas drops the hammer, speaking like a priest delivering the final rites. One rule: stay away from Emily and Tommy. No texts, no stalking the school if he breaks it. The entire debt drops on his head instantly. Frank whines that he does not have the cash, and Nicholas just throws it right back. That is the point. But here is the sickest part of human nature, trapped and broken. Frank still claims his right to the boy. You think the boss didn't see that coming. Nicholas does not even look up. He just slides another paper over. A guardianship petition already filed. He has 14 witnesses lined up like bowling pins. Neighbors, the school nurse, even the hospice worker who watched Frank's wife die. They are all ready to take the stand and destroy him. Nicholas even paid the lawyer, billing Emily exactly $1 single just to make it legal. Frank's jaw practically hits the floor. It is brilliant, but it is also deeply sad when you think about it. It took a crime lord breaking every rule in the book to do what the legal system failed to do for years. Nicholas orders him to sign the boy away, to pack his bags and vanish forever. Game over. Look at this pathetic last gasp of defiance. Frank asks what happens if he refuses. Nicholas just stands up, buttons his jacket with this terrifying, elegant calmness, and lays out the alternative. Frank leaves either way. The only difference is whether the loan sharks break his legs first. The fight totally leaves Frank's body right here. The shoulders drop, the head hangs. He grabs the pen and signs his entire life away. Fast forward to that night. Frank walks into the apartment, completely silent, with 3 Mafia shadows looming in the hallway behind him. He cannot even bring himself to look Emily in the eye. He just shuffles into the bedroom he used to share with her mother, grabs a duffel bag, and packs up, the ultimate walk of shame. 20 minutes. That is all it takes to erase years of torment. But watch the doorway scene closely. Frank stops. He rests his hand on the frame, turning just a fraction, opening his mouth like he wants to drop one last toxic word. But the enforcer whispers a soft, chilling no, and that is it. The monster is muzzled. The door clicks shut. Emily is standing there in the living room, completely frozen. Because trauma wires your brain to expect the worst. She is bracing for him to kick the door back open. Instead, a tiny voice breaks the silence. It is Tommy. For the first time in 2 years, the kid steps out of his room on his own. He gently touches his sister's hand and asks if the bad man is gone. It is impossible not to tear up. She whispers into his hair that the nightmare is really over. It is a beautiful, fragile moment. But then the camera cuts across the river, showing us the other side of the coin. Nicholas steps into his huge, dark townhouse. It is so quiet it feels like a tomb. He finds his little girl, Sophia, sitting up in bed with Charlotte's Web. He tries to play the strict dad, telling her it is past her bedtime. But she completely ignores that and asks the only question that matters. Is her teacher safe now? Nicholas promises her that Emily is safe. The kid just nods, satisfied. But then she drops a total emotional bomb. She asks if her dead mother would have liked Miss Hayes. You can physically see the breath leave Nicholas's lungs. This is where we get the brutal flashback. 3 years ago, a totally normal Tuesday, Nicholas's wife, Isabella, walking out of a preschool. A black sedan rolls up and rival hitmen open fire, aiming for Nicholas, but the timing was off by just 4 minutes. 4 minutes changed everything. Isabella bled out on the concrete, still gripping her daughter's tiny hand. So when Nicholas looks at Sophia now, pushing the hair from her face, his heart is basically a fresh wound. He tells her that her mom would have loved Emily, because her mom always recognized the good in people. Sophia gives him her first real smile in days and drifts off, but Nicholas, he goes down to his dark study, pours a heavy glass of whiskey and stares outside. Stick with me here, guys, because you and I are about to watch the turning point of his entire character arc. He stares at the silver frame on his desk, Isabella laughing, holding a baby Sophia for 3 solid years. The only things keeping this man breathing were suffocating grief and a thirst for bloody revenge. But tonight, a tiny crack of light enters the darkness. Meanwhile, Emily is dealing with her own ghosts. Frank is gone, but her body does not know that yet. She still locks the deadbolt in the chain. She still leaves the kitchen light blazing. She cooks standing up, listening for footsteps that are never coming. It takes 4 days before she finally slips up and leaves a glass on the coffee table, untouched. That water ring on the coffee table is the most beautiful thing in the world to her. Nobody threw the glass. Nobody came home drunk and angry. She just stands there staring at it, realizing she is actually free, and the proof is in Tommy. The kid starts eating at the kitchen table again. Something he hasn't done since he was 6 years old. He meticulously lines up his fork and spoon, finally feeling safe enough to exist outside his bedroom. Emily has to bite her lip to keep from sobbing right into her breakfast. And the relief spills over into her real life too at school. An older teacher catches her by the copier and asks if she did something to her hair because she looks so rested. Emily just laughs. A completely real laugh. Then we get this incredible moment out on the playground. Little Sophia wanders over, leans on the fence, and just bluntly tells Emily that she smiles more now. Emily plays dumb, but Sophia hits her with that devastating kid logic. She says Emily used to only smile with her mouth, but now she smiles with her eyes. Boom. You cannot hide anything from a traumatized kid. They read the room better than anyone. Emily is just stunned into silence. Then comes Saturday night. Her phone buzzes. It is him. He asks if she wants a real coffee, not out of a paper cup in an armored car. She hesitates for exactly 3 seconds before saying yes. The director puts them in this moody, hidden cafe in Brooklyn. Nicholas is waiting, looking like a loaded gun. Here we are at the end, and you and I have to appreciate the tension in this coffee shop scene outside. 3 Mafia soldiers are standing on the sidewalk, making sure nobody breathes wrong in their direction. Inside, it is just a man and a woman pretending to be normal. They talk about movies, anything but the violence that brought them together. But Nicholas cannot lie to her. He admits he avoids theaters because public spaces are a risk. Emily finally pushes back, hinting that she knows exactly what kind of dark work he does. And Nicholas doesn't flinch. He agrees it isn't pretty, but admits he is trying to change. Then he forces himself to say the words out loud. His wife was murdered 3 years ago. The tragedy comes full circle. Let us pause right here, guys. Look at Nicholas. He is tearing himself apart because he was 4 minutes late, blaming his own mob lifestyle for making his family a target. The bitterest part of the criminal underworld isn't the bullets. It is the guilt that eats you alive. He thinks he is a monster, but then Emily just reaches across the table, one tiny touch, and she tells him he did something right with his daughter. He doesn't pull away. Why? Because in a life built entirely on violence and betrayal, sometimes the heaviest armor cracks the moment someone shows you a single ounce of genuine grace. It is a harsh truth we all learn eventually. We are our own worst critics. And sometimes it takes a complete stranger to remind us that we aren't entirely broken. Now contrast that with 20 blocks north. You and I need to look at Vanessa Blackwood for a second. She is lounging in a white leather penthouse, scrolling away when a mysterious photo drops. It is Nicholas, completely captivated by a plain teacher in a cheap gray turtleneck. Vanessa has spent 8 months playing the perfect polished mistress, and he never once looked at her like that. She snaps, smashes her phone right against the plaster wall. The absolute irony is that you can have all the marble floors and black cards in the world, but you cannot buy genuine affection. She dials her assistant immediately, demanding every single detail about Emily. It is a tough lesson in life. Really, we chase the shiny things, but true connection is always found in the quiet, unpolished moments. Let us break down Vanessa's playbook. For 8 straight months, she played by Nicholas's strict rules. No staying over, no meeting his kid, no public dates. She traded her pride for a limitless black card and an empty penthouse, desperately hoping that one day she would get the promotion from secret mistress to main partner. She waited so patiently in her gilded cage, and the tragic joke. All her calculated sacrifices mean nothing now. Her powerful mob boss is sitting in some basic Brooklyn cafe, absolutely smitten with a 27-year-old teacher wearing no makeup. The real tragedy is that you can follow every rule in a rigged game and still lose everything. Life does not reward you for shrinking yourself to fit someone else's terms. It just leaves you empty-handed in a beautiful room. So what does Vanessa do? She completely panics and breaks the one rule you never break. She shows up uninvited on a Sunday, specifically to ambush his daughter. She actually tries to pitch herself as a new mother figure. But here is the brilliant part. Sophia walks in. Just a little kid in stocking feet with a sketchbook. But she takes one look at Vanessa's perfectly painted face and instantly sees right through the act. Kids are like lie detectors, guys. Sophia doesn't throw a fit. She just grabs her dad's hand and calmly pulls him away, silently declaring war on this intruder. The lesson here is incredibly simple but sharp. You cannot fake authenticity, especially to a child. People will always sense your true intentions, no matter how nicely you dress them up in designer clothes. Vanessa tries slapping on this sickeningly sweet smile, calling the kid pretty, but Sophia absolutely ghosts her. Nicholas coldly tells Vanessa to leave now. Pay close attention right here, as Vanessa storms out. She shoots this totally venomous look at the empty hallway. Sophia misses it, but Marco, the loyal mob bodyguard, catches every single micro-expression. He clocks that nasty glare the same way a soldier memorizes a landmine. It is a chilling detail because Vanessa thinks she is being so slick, but she just put a massive target on her own back. The universe has a funny way of working. Your true character always leaks out in the moments you think nobody is watching. You can smile all you want, but your darkest impulses will eventually expose you to the exact wrong people. Flash forward a week, and a fake new mom shows up at Emily's school PTA meeting. It is Vanessa's assistant, Rosa, armed with warm smiles and a plate of fresh brownies. But she is really planting toxic little seeds of gossip, whispering about the sweet teacher, sneaking into a wealthy parent's black car. Emily gets cornered in the break room, and hears the ugly rumors spinning out of control. Think about how pathetic this is: a millionaire mistress, using middle school mean girl tactics to destroy a kindergarten teacher's life. It is honestly heartbreaking. The hard truth we all have to swallow is that hurt people will always try to hurt other people. Whenever someone feels their own power slipping away, Their first instinct is usually to drag an innocent person down into the mud with them. You and I have to admire Emily's spine right now. She sits in her quiet car, gripping the wheel, and makes the hardest call imaginable. She tells Nicholas she cannot let his daughter get caught in the crossfire of nasty rumors, so they need to hit the brakes. She actually hangs up on a Mafia boss. She sacrifices her own happiness to protect a little girl. Nicholas sits there in absolute shock then. The protective father wakes up. He instantly unleashes Marco to hunt down this fake PTA mom. Notice the extreme difference here. Emily protects people by stepping back. Nicholas protects people by destroying threats. Life teaches us that real love isn't about holding on desperately sometimes. The most profound act of care is having the courage to walk away when the damage gets too high. 2 hours later, Marco drops the hammer. The fake mom is Vanessa's assistant. Nicholas summons Vanessa, and she strolls into his office. Clicking her expensive heels, wearing her fake confidence like a fresh coat of armor, she tries to play dumb. But Nicholas casually slides a massive folder across his desk. Boom. Timestamp, security footage, hacked text messages. He completely annihilates her illusion of secrecy. She thought she was playing a clever game, but she forgot she was playing against a man who runs the underworld. She stammers out that she just wanted to know the truth. The bitter reality of human nature is that our insecurities will always make us do incredibly foolish things. We dig our own graves trying to control situations that were never ours to hold on to in the first place. Nicholas just stands up, buttons his jacket, and coldly ends it. He gives her exactly 2 hours to pack up her luxurious life and vanish. She begs. But he does not even blink. Walking into his kid's school was the fatal mistake now. Pause and watch Vanessa's next move. Instead of taking the loss and walking away with a little dignity, her bruised ego completely takes over. In the elevator, she calls her assistant and shifts from spreading petty rumors to ordering a literal hit. Cut to poor Emily driving home on a Wednesday afternoon, pressing her foot down on the brake pedal, only to feel it sink uselessly to the floor. It is a terrifying life lesson about toxic pride when you strip away an insecure person's fake power. Their desperation will turn them into something utterly monstrous. The pedal goes all the way to the floor mat. Emily's little Civic flies through a busy intersection, narrowly dodging a heavy pickup truck before she desperately yanks the emergency brake. The car violently skids into the curb. She is sitting there, absolutely paralyzed, breathing in ragged gasps like a terrified child. But before she can even process the shock, a massive black SUV slides up behind her. Nicholas's men are already there. One checks her pulse while the other slides right under her car on the dirty asphalt. They knew she was in danger before she did. It is such a wild, jarring contrast, the sheer terror of realizing your life is fragile, suddenly met with the scary comfort of being shadowed by the Mafia. It reminds us that our deepest safety often comes from the darkest places. The guy crawls out from under the car, holding a piece of black rubber. The brake line wasn't just snapped, it was surgically cut, sliced just enough to let her drive a few miles before totally failing. It is a terrifyingly calculated move. Cut back to Nicholas's office, and Marco is already presenting the video evidence. A hired mechanic sliding under Emily's car at the school parking lot. Vanessa totally orchestrated a murder attempt, and her assistant is already fleeing to Miami on a one-way ticket. Think about the pure insanity here, a jealous ex-girlfriend escalating from schoolyard gossip to vehicular manslaughter in a matter of days. Life warns us about this constantly. Resentment is a slow-acting poison, and if you let it fester in your heart, it will eventually turn you into a stone-cold killer. Nicholas slams his fist down so hard the entire room shakes. He immediately orders his men to grab Emily and his daughter and lock them down in his secure tower. An hour later, Emily steps out of a private elevator into a penthouse bigger than any building she has ever lived in. But look closely at Nicholas. He strides across that massive room, stops right in front of her, and completely drops his armor. The ruthless kingpin looks at this sweet teacher and confesses that she almost died today because of him. The bitter irony is staggering. He built this massive empire to protect his loved ones, yet his very existence is the thing putting them in grave danger. It is a harsh truth we all face. Sometimes the walls we build to keep the monsters out are the exact same walls that trap the monsters inside with us. He takes the blame for letting Vanessa get too close, but before the heavy guilt can settle, little Sophia comes sprinting into the room and practically tackles Emily in a desperate hug, without even overthinking it. Emily just kisses the kid's head like she is family then. Emily's little brother Tommy is carried in by a giant mob enforcer. quietly counting the fancy ceiling lights. That night they sleep in a guest suite, wrapped in ridiculously expensive silk sheets. Someone even left a single new Lego brick on Tommy's pillow. That small detail destroys me. A syndicate of killers making sure an autistic kid feels safe. It proves that nobody is just one thing, even in the darkest, most violent chapters of our lives. The human capacity for sudden, breathtaking gentleness can still shine through and save us. Emily wanders out onto the balcony at 1 a.m, staring out over Manhattan shining like shattered glass. Nicholas is already there, carrying the weight of the city. She stands beside him and drops a heavy truth. Her abusive ex was a nightmare. But at least he was a nightmare she understood now. She has invisible enemies trying to sever her brake lines. Nicholas turns to her and vows that nothing bad will ever touch her again. He does not explain how, he just gives her that look. That silent promise of absolute destruction for anyone who tries. And here is the profound takeaway, guys. Sometimes escaping a bad situation means stepping into a far more dangerous one. But when you find someone willing to burn the entire world down just to keep you safe, that terrifying leap is completely worth it. Let us hit pause right here, because you and I need to appreciate the absolute irony of this setup. Nicholas moves them into a safe house on the 18th floor in Brooklyn. We are talking biometric locks, big windows facing Prospect Park, and a lobby doorman who is definitely packing heat. But to little Tommy, this mobster fortress is paradise, a desk just for his Legos, where nobody breaks his things. At first, the kid is a ghost, but here is the fatal emotional spot. It is not the tough Mafia boss who pulls Tommy out of his shell. It is little Sophia. 4 days a week, she shows up with her school books. She never forces him to talk, never demands eye contact. She just offers the one thing this broken kid has never had, a totally safe, quiet presence. Look at this beautiful, heartbreaking little routine. Sophia just sits on the rug, building her own Lego row right next to his, completely silent for an hour. One day she drops a copy of Charlotte's Web on his desk, tells him it is good. Tommy, in his deeply traumatized way, lines the book up perfectly 1 inch from the edge. He does not read it immediately, but the next morning, Emily finds he made it through 2 pages. That is a massive victory. Meanwhile, you have the big bad crime boss, Nicholas, dropping by unannounced. The guy who runs the underworld is showing up with fresh cannoli and lasagna from Carroll Gardens. He sits at the kitchen island, sipping espresso for 20 minutes, just soaking in the sight of these 2 kids, quietly bickering over a game of checkers. This scene right here is where the armor completely falls off. The kids are asleep, the wine is open, and Emily asks Nicholas how he carries the grief of his late wife. He tells her it is an ache that stopped being a daily knife wound, but it never really leaves. And then Emily shatters your heart. She admits she has never truly loved anyone because her violent ex Frank made her utterly terrified of men. She was scared Frank would beat any guy she brought home, or worse, teach that guy how to abuse her too. Nicholas tells her that nightmare is over, but Emily confesses the fear is literally baked into her bones. She still flinches at slammed doors. And what does the most dangerous mobster in the city do? He just reaches across the table and rests his heavy hand over hers. He does not grab her hand, he just lets his rest there. A quiet anchor, he whispers that he is relearning how to live too. Fast forward to Saturday at Prospect Park. Picture them eating thick slices of Sicilian pizza under a green tree. Watching Tommy run around pretending to be an airplane, while Sophia laughs her head off. It is the perfect suburban illusion then. A passing mother smiles and calls them a beautiful family. Emily blushes so hard she practically catches fire, but Nicholas, he does not correct the stranger. He does not even blink. When the passers-by are out of earshot, he turns to Emily and drops a line that hits like a freight train. He says he did not correct her because he did not want to. This ruthless crime boss is desperate for this ordinary, fragile life. Emily stays quiet for a second before whispering that she did not want to correct the woman either. It is not a loud romantic declaration. It is a silent, dangerous agreement that they are actually doing this. But right when you feel the warmth, we smash cut to a hotel suite in Miami Beach. Vanessa Blackwood, the mistress Nicholas brutally cast aside, is drowning her bitterness in her 3rd afternoon martini. Nicholas gave her 30 days to disappear, and she only has 22 left. Suddenly, her phone rings. The front desk says there is a nameless gentleman in the lobby. He will only say that he is Russian and that she will understand. You can physically feel the dread drop into the room. Vanessa sits up so fast her olive smashes against the rim of her glass. Trouble is here. There is only one Russian alive who would track down a mobster's ex in Florida. 2 minutes later, Viktor Koslov walks in, platinum hair, a nasty white scar through his eyebrow, and a heavy charcoal overcoat. This guy just oozes underworld menace. He looks like he has buried bodies on multiple continents. He tells Vanessa they share a mutual enemy, for the first time in weeks. She actually smiles. Viktor sits uninvited and lays his cards on the table. He wants to make Nicholas Moretti bleed. And he needs the exact daily schedule of Emily and little Sophia to make it happen. You have to laugh at the bitter tragedy here. Vanessa grips her glass and demands the child not be harmed. Viktor gives her one of those dead, shark-like smiles and swears he will not touch the kid. Sure he will not. Let us look at this piece by piece, shall we? Viktor plays her perfectly. He claims he just needs leverage to force Nicholas to the negotiating table. He feeds Vanessa a beautiful toxic lie that once the new girlfriend is out of the picture, Nicholas will come crawling back to her for comfort. And Vanessa, blinded by rejection, actually buys it. She pulls out her little notebook and starts writing down every single Mafia secret she was ordered never to record, the daily routines, the Brooklyn townhouse, the exact locations of the safe houses she was taken to while blindfolded. She slides her handwritten betrayal across the table. Viktor does not even offer a simple thank you. He just takes the paper, folds it into his custom coat, and walks out. She just signed everyone's death warrant. For 10 blissful days, while a trap is being set in the shadows, these people actually get to taste peace. The Brooklyn court signs the paperwork, officially making Emily the legal guardian of Tommy. The judge takes one look at the file and wisely asks 0 questions. Emily moves the kids into a small apartment in Park Slope. Nicholas, being the wealthy mobster, immediately offers to pay her rent. But here's the fatal emotional spot. Emily refuses. She tells him she needs to do this on her own, calling him Nick for the very first time. He respects her independence so much he just nods. Later that week, he takes her to a hidden Italian joint in Carroll Gardens. The owner knows him. No menus are needed, and they just sit in the back booth talking about completely normal things. Picture this moment, because it is the classic calm before the absolute devastation. They are walking down a beautiful brownstone block. Piano music drifting out of an open window. Nicholas stops and asks Emily what she truly thinks of him, standing under a street lamp. She confesses the brutal truth. She is terrified of his violent crime family world and doubts she is strong enough to survive it. Nicholas looks her dead in the eye and says he wants to burn that world down so he can be with her. But when she asks if he can actually walk away, reality crashes back in. He admits he is trying to push his empire into clean real estate and restaurants. But you cannot just flip a switch on the Mafia. It has to be carefully unraveled. Emily just gives him this terribly sad, knowing smile. She gently asks him for more time, and he leans down to kiss her forehead, not a passionate, movie star kiss, but a solemn promise from a man who finally has something to lose. But the universe does not care about promises. Stick with me, this is where it gets interesting. At that exact same moment, inside a rusted Coney Island warehouse, Viktor Koslov is finalizing a nightmare. He is standing over a map of Oakwood Elementary, holding the corners down with spent bullet casings. He taps the paper and tells his crew that tomorrow at 3 they strike. A white van will pull up, and they grab Emily and the kids in under 60 seconds. One of his thugs points out that Nicholas has bodyguards watching them. Viktor coldly calculates the odds, completely unfazed by the threat. Viktor knows Nicholas has 2 guards on them, one in the car, one on foot, but Viktor is bringing 8 heavily armed men, 4-to-1 odds. He smiles, and that nasty scar on his face twists like a snake. He announces that tomorrow they will carve the living heart right out of Nicholas Moretti. Fast forward to Thursday, exactly 3 o'clock at the elementary school. Emily is standing in the chaotic courtyard, tightly holding Sophia's hand. Little Tommy is right beside them, gripping his backpack strap, doing his best to brave the noisy crowd, just so he can walk home with his sister. It breaks your heart seeing them try to be a normal family. Just 10 yards behind them, Nicholas's bodyguard David is leaning against a light pole, holding a cup of coffee he is not even drinking. You and I have probably seen 100 movie shootouts, but the sheer panic of this moment is entirely different. 20 yards away, the second guard, Johnny, is playing it cool against a parked sedan. At 3:05, Emily starts walking toward the parking lot. Suddenly, a white van screeches up to the curb. The side door slides open before the tires even stop rolling, and 4 men in dark jackets sprint out. David spots them instantly. His gun clears his jacket in a blur, and he drops the lead attacker with a single shot to the shoulder. But the chaos is too fast. Before anyone can blink, Another thug grabs little Sophia, violently hoisting her off the ground. Johnny charges in, throwing massive punches, cracking a right hook into an ear. The ordinary day just became a war zone. Guys, picture this. The second attacker is built like a tank, holding a steel baton that comes crashing down on Johnny's head. The poor guy drops to the pavement instantly. Emily screams, trying to shield little Tommy. But a hand grabs her hair and violently yanks her off her feet. As she goes down, she screams for David to call Nicholas. 45 seconds. That is literally all it took. Emily, Sophia, and Tommy are shoved into a white van, tires squealing as they vanish toward Ocean Parkway before anyone even knows what happened. Meanwhile, David is bleeding out against a light pole, his leg absolutely shredded. You and I both know the bitter truth here sometimes. No matter how hard you fight, the bad guys are just faster. David barely even feels the bullet tearing through him. His hand shakes so violently, he almost drops the phone, but he forces himself to dial. Boss. We got hit. They took all three in a white van, heading west toward the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway. Cut to the 42nd floor of the Moretti Tower. Nicholas is right in the middle of a meeting, playing the untouchable mob boss. He listens for 3 seconds, stands up so fast his chair smashes into the window, and realizes his worst nightmare just came true. Pull everyone, he says. It is Koslov. Back in the van, Emily is thrown onto the freezing metal floor with a black hood over her head. Zip ties digging into her wrists. She hears Sophia sobbing, and worse, she hears Tommy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tommy is counting loud and fast, totally overwhelmed. A voice barks to shut the kid up, but Emily, bless her heart, stays incredibly calm despite the hood blinding her. She warns them that Tommy is autistic, and if they gag him, he will completely panic and crack his own head open against the metal floor. The older kidnapper in the front seat actually listens and tells them to let the kid count. The van rumbles along for 40 miserable minutes until they hit the smell of salt air and rotting fish. They are shoved into a freezing concrete room. The hoods come off, but the ties stay on. Sophia instantly bolts across the floor, desperately burying her face in Emily's skirt for any shred of safety. Little Tommy just curls up in the corner, facing the cold wall, and starts counting even louder. Then the door swings open, and in walks Viktor Kozlov, rocking platinum hair and a deeply unsettling smile. He actually mocks Emily, telling her how well Nicholas kept her hidden. He wants Nicholas to show up alone, completely unarmed, just to talk. Viktor sits down in a folding chair like he has all the time in the world, knowing Nicholas will cave. Why? Because Viktor stares right at little Sophia and casually promises to start cutting off pieces of her if Nicholas does not show up. Tommy stops counting for 1 agonizing second and then starts up again, louder than before. It just breaks your heart to watch kids dragged into an adult war. Meanwhile, deep in some dark parking garage under the Brooklyn Bridge, Nicholas is making a phone call he swore he would never make. It rings twice before Agent Chen answers. Nicholas drops all his pride and begs for help, offering up Viktor Koslov in exchange for a SWAT team. He tells Chen that Viktor has been moving little girls through the Red Hook container terminal for 4 years. Nicholas has all the dirty secrets, the names, the shipping logs, the endless bank wires. He is trading a lifetime of mob secrets just to save his daughter. Look, you and I can judge his criminal past all we want, but right here, a father is burning his own empire to the ground to protect his little girl. By 6:30 p.m. the deal is basically set. Agent Robert Chen sits perfectly still in his unmarked Tahoe, staring down Nicholas for 10 excruciating seconds before finally answering. Chen agrees, but only on one ruthless condition: the FBI goes in first, and Nicholas has to stay on the perimeter like a good little boy. Nicholas agrees. It is literally the only word he has spoken in 40 minutes, and you can just feel the quiet rage radiating off him. Flash forward to 7:45 p.m. in Brighton Beach. The SWAT vehicles are quietly staging under a raised subway line. Nicholas and 8 of his own loyal guys are hiding around the corner of an old body shop. They are wearing dark jackets, completely invisible from the warehouse windows, waiting for all hell to break loose. Nicholas finally dials the number Viktor made Sophia recite earlier. He promises to walk through the north door in 10 minutes, completely alone. As soon as he hangs up, he turns to Marco with a suicide plan. Marco is taking the east door the second the shooting starts, and Chen is hitting the main entrance. Marco is absolutely terrified, telling his boss this is a death wish, but Nicholas just shuts him down. He walks across that empty lot with his hands up, looking like a lamb going to the slaughter. But guys, here is the kicker. He has a 4-inch tactical blade hidden right against his ankle. 2 goons pat him down, miss the knife completely, and shove him into this massive, terrifying concrete loading bay. The trap is sprung. Victor is standing right in the middle of the room, flanked by 6 armed thugs like some cheap movie villain. Emily, Sophia, and Tommy are pressed against a cold steel column, their wrists still bound. Little Sophia screams for her dad, and Nicholas, trying to hold it together, asks if everyone is okay. Victor just laughs that dry, arrogant laugh and forces Nicholas to his knees. The gun is pressed directly against Nicholas's forehead, but Nicholas does not even flinch, without moving an inch. He casually asks Victor if he wants to know what Vanessa spilled about the Red Hook terminal. He rattles off the details about the shipping manifests and the 7 offshore bank accounts. He is literally staring death in the face and stalling. Nicholas casually drops the bomb that FBI agent Robert Chen is already reading those files. Victor freezes, his finger literally pausing on the trigger, and at that exact, glorious second, the main warehouse doors absolutely explode inward. FBI agents are screaming to get down, and total chaos erupts. Victor's guys start shooting at the SWAT team, and Marco bursts through the east door with 8 mobsters. Nicholas instantly moves, slapping Victor's gun away just as the first shot rips into the floor. Nicholas dives for the column, but a second gunman zeroes in on him. A rifle round actually tears straight across the top of his shoulder. He does not even slow down. He reaches his family, and that hidden blade slides right out. With 2 lightning-fast slashes, Nicholas frees Emily and Sophia. Poor Tommy has been counting this entire time, eyes squeezed shut, and he is already up to 113. Nicholas yells at Emily to get the kids out through the east door where Marco is waiting. Emily grabs both kids and practically vanishes into the thick gun smoke, but Nicholas, he turns right back around. Victor is hiding behind a stack of crates, desperately firing at the cops. Nicholas calmly picks up a dropped SWAT rifle and blasts 3 rounds right through the crates, hitting Victor in the leg, the gut, and the shoulder. The guy goes down hard, and the SWAT team swarms him before he even stops moving. It is a brutal, violent end to a nightmare. We cut to the outside, bathed in the flashing blue lights of the police cruisers. Emily is sitting on the cold curb, hugging the kids tight, crying without making a single sound. Tommy finally stopped counting the second. His bare feet touched the pavement, and now he is just breathing with his eyes closed. Marco runs up to tell them they are safe, and then Nicholas walks out of that warehouse. His black jacket is soaked in blood, his shoulder practically shredded by that rifle round. And guys, this is the part that really gets me. Emily does not even think. She just runs across the sidewalk and throws her arms around this bleeding, violent mobster. He winces from the pain, but his good arm pulls her in tight. It is so deeply human. He whispers into her hair that he thought he had lost her, and she says it right back. Then Agent Chen walks up, looking as stone-faced as ever, demanding the evidence Nicholas promised by 6 a.m. Nicholas just nods. Victor gets wheeled past them on a bloody stretcher, handcuffed to the railing. He is going to live just long enough to be tossed into a federal supermax prison in Marion, Illinois, where he will literally rot for the rest of his life. 2 days later, we are in a fancy private hospital room on the Upper East Side. Nicholas is resting, though we all know he hates it. The rifle round cleanly grazed him without hitting any major arteries. But the guy is still battered. Actions have consequences, even for the survivors. He is stuck with 14 stitches and a sling, and told to rest for 2 weeks, which he is definitely going to ignore. Emily is sitting quietly in the armchair next to his bed, with little Sophia fast asleep in her lap. Tommy is on the floor by the window, peacefully building this perfectly symmetrical wall out of blue and yellow Legos. Marco quietly slips into the room to deliver the final piece of the puzzle. Vanessa was grabbed at the Miami airport trying to flee to Sao Paulo. Nicholas coldly orders Marco to hand her over to the FBI. It is over. Marco nods and leaves, and Emily just waits for the door to click shut. Stick with me on this, because it proves that you can escape the fire, but you always carry the scars. Let us pause right here and look at this setup, because the irony is heavy. Nicholas is in that hospital bed, and when asked if he is glad, he just says he feels lighter. His late wife finally got a slice of justice, 5 days later. He bails on the doctors and heads back to his Brooklyn house. Tommy is at the kitchen island, covered in flour, rolling pasta with this intense seriousness that almost breaks Emily in half. You and I know how that feels, right? Letting your guard down because the house smells like food and the kids are safe. The doorbell rings. Nicholas checks the camera, sees a regular delivery guy with a box, and Emily walks over to open it. It is the perfect picture of domestic peace, the ultimate illusion. Because the man waiting on the other side is not dropping off a package. It is Frank Delaney. 2 months of being a nobody has completely hollowed this guy out. He is 20 pounds lighter, drowning in an old jacket. He has been rotting in some cheap motel off the expressway. Every single door in his life slammed shut, and in his twisted mind. It is all Emily's fault. Down by his thigh, hidden low, is an 8-inch chef knife. His eyes are totally unfocused. He lunges at her, screaming that she ruined his life. And Emily, she just freezes. Trauma does that, dragging her right back to the old abuse. The broken glass on the floor. Her legs refuse to work. Her hands will not move. Listen. Sometimes the biggest threats we face are not the new villains, but the ghosts of our past that we thought we had already outrun. Nicholas does not hesitate. He launches himself across the foyer at a dead sprint. Completely ignoring his sling, he slams into Emily, tossing her out of the way. The knife buries itself straight into his stomach, right up to the handle. Sophia screams for her dad from the kitchen. And that sound just rips your heart out. Frank yanks the blade free, gearing up for a second strike, but he never gets the chance. Marco, the loyal bodyguard who has been standing watch outside, hits Frank like a freight train. He drives Frank straight into the plaster wall, dropping him cold. Emily is already falling to her knees. Here is the ultimate irony. A man who spent his whole life dodging professional hitmen just took a cheap blade to the gut from an absolute nobody. All because he finally opened his heart to someone else. The blood is terrifying. It is spilling out through Nicholas's fingers as he grips his stomach. Emily begs him to stay awake, screaming at Marco for an ambulance, but Marco is already one step ahead, pinning Frank to the floor. Nicholas actually tries to smile. It barely works, but he manages to choke out that she is safe now. Sophia is on her knees, crying in absolute silence with her tiny fist shoved against her mouth. That is the kind of trauma that marks a kid forever. Then Tommy walks out of the kitchen. He is moving in slow motion, still clutching a little blue Lego brick he was playing with moments ago. He stares at the red pool, then at Nicholas. It shows you how fast life flips in the blink of an eye. These two kids just had their fragile new sense of peace completely shattered all over again. Stick with me, because this moment is beautiful and totally heartbreaking. Tommy steps carefully around the blood, puts his Lego brick into Nicholas's hand, and calls him uncle for the very first time. He begs him not to die. Nicholas manages a weak laugh and promises he will stay. The medics arrive, then the cops. Frank is finally dragged out on a stretcher, facing real attempted murder charges. Emily is in the ambulance, squeezing Nicholas's hand, begging him to stay for the kids and for her. But his eyes just slide shut. The hospital doors burst open, and the emergency room takes over in that quiet, efficient way only the best trauma units do. It is a harsh truth. You can finally start making all the right choices in life, and still find yourself entirely at the mercy of fate. Nicholas is wheeled into surgery, with the chief doctor dragged out of bed. The blade missed his heart, but it tore through his stomach and clipped his liver. Massive internal bleeding. Out in the waiting room, Emily sits in the sterile light, with little Sophia passed out on her lap. Notice the shift here, guys. The old mob playbook is back in full force. Marco plants himself outside those doors and refuses to budge. The crew is on maximum lockdown, with guards covering every hospital entrance, the garage, and the surgical wing. It is a painful reality. Nicholas desperately tried to walk away from his past, but the violence followed him right into his home, forcing his new family back behind those heavy barricades, sometimes. You cannot just wish for peace, you have to defend it. Sal Lombardi shows up later, still buttoned up in his overcoat. He offers Emily coffee, but she declines. Sal drops into the chair across from her. Just a tired man who has seen too much street violence. Then he drops this emotional truth bomb. He tells her he has known Nicholas since the guy was 19. He was there for the birth of his daughter, the death of his first wife, and the delayed tears that followed. But here is the part that breaks you. Sal admits Nicholas never looked at his first wife the way he looks at Emily. Back then, Nicholas was young and thought he was bulletproof. With Emily, he is older. He actually has something to lose, and it terrifies him. The absolute greatest vulnerability a powerful man can have is finding someone he simply cannot live without. Sal says Nicholas is brave enough to love a second time. That breaks the dam. Emily starts crying for the first time since the ambulance doors shut. The hours drag on, turning the waiting room into pure agony. By midnight, one of Sal's men scoops up a sleeping Sophia and carries her to a waiting truck, where a loyal caretaker drives her safely home. Tommy is already tucked into bed under the watch of Marco's wife. The mob soldiers are stepping up to protect the innocent, Finally, deep into the night, those heavy surgical doors slide open. A doctor in green scrubs steps out, pulling down his mask and calls for the family. It reminds you of a hard truth. No matter how much money or power you hold, your entire universe sometimes shrinks down to the next word, out of a total stranger's mouth. Emily stands up, her legs feeling like jelly. The doctor drops the best news possible. The surgery was a success, and Nicholas is completely stable. His liver will heal. His stomach is patched, and he is going to survive. Emily collapses into her chair and sobs out loud, releasing all the terror she has been holding inside. Sal rests a hand on her shoulder, gently joking that his boss is way too stubborn to die. 6 hours later, they are in the dim quiet of the intensive care unit. The machines are beeping that beautiful, steady rhythm of life. Nicholas finally blinks awake, fighting the fog like a man swimming up from the ocean floor. His voice is thin as paper, but he manages a simple hello. Knowing the people you love are safe is truly the greatest reward in the world. Let us look at this together, because it is the perfect emotional payoff. Emily calls him an idiot, and he laughs. Even though it hurts his stitched gut, she gives him the rundown. The kids are safe, and Frank is locked up in Rikers without bail. Then Nicholas gets serious. He says if he had died on that floor, his last thought was not about his first wife or his daughter. It was simply the fact that Emily was going to survive, and that was enough. Emily kisses his forehead, returning the promise he gave her weeks ago, and orders him to never scare her again. He promises outside the sun starts rising over Brooklyn, painting the sky clean. Sometimes you have to survive the absolute darkest night of your life, just to truly appreciate the beauty of a brand new morning. 3 weeks fly by and Nicholas is home, healing in his penthouse overlooking the East River. Emily is on summer break. None of her students' parents will ever know about the insane kidnapping she survived. She visits every day, bringing Sophia and Tommy along. Without anyone forcing it, these 4 broken pieces naturally form a real family around the kitchen table. The biggest transformation is Tommy. This kid grew up in a total war zone now, with zero yelling in the house and Nicholas acting as the first genuinely gentle male role model in his life. Tommy actually starts opening up. He talks about his Lego forts and explains his building strategies. It is amazing how much healing naturally happens when a child finally realizes they are completely safe from harm. We are about to see his final move, but look at this detail first. Tommy nicknames him Uncle Starfish because of an old scar on his hand. Meanwhile, little Sophia finally gets a best friend in Tommy. They build their own little universe together, one quiet Thursday night, while the kids are asleep. Nicholas and Emily are wrapped in a blanket on the rooftop terrace. Manhattan is glowing beneath them. Nicholas drops the bombshell. He is actually doing it. He is dismantling his mob empire. He tells her he is selling off the dark, illegal pieces of his life, handing power to guys who will take the cash and leave him in peace. He is only keeping the legitimate businesses. It proves that when you finally find real love, the dangerous chaos of power completely loses its appeal. He confirms it. Completely legitimate. In a year and a half, he will step down as the boss and just be a normal builder and a father. Then he reaches into his jacket and pulls out a tiny velvet box. He clarifies that he is not actually proposing yet. They both have too much healing to do, but he wants her to know it exists for when they are ready. Emily opens it, finding a simple platinum band with a modest diamond. It is not some flashy mobster rock, it is the quiet, elegant ring a teacher can wear to school without turning heads. Emily laughs, and those laughs melt into happy tears. She calls him the most romantic Mafia boss alive. He smiles, correcting her to former Mafia boss, before she leans in to kiss him. True power is having the ultimate strength to just walk away and choose love. Fast forward a bit, and we hit the ultimate irony. They finally share that first real kiss. But Emily refuses to just become some mob boss's kept woman. She takes the apartment 1 floor below his, her own door, her own lock, her own rules. And Nicholas, the guy who could probably buy half of Brooklyn, just sits back and lets her set the pace. When autumn rolls around, he quietly pays for Tommy to transfer into a top-tier autism program. Emily fights him tooth and nail on it, but she swallows her pride because it saves her brother's life. Sophia is not in Emily's class anymore, but she still sneaks down to visit her favorite teacher every single afternoon. And Emily keeps a hidden box of gold star stickers in her drawer, strictly reserved for the Mafia boss's daughter. Now we are standing in Prospect Park on a freezing October afternoon, under a massive maple tree that looks like it is on fire. Sophia is out there patiently teaching Tommy how to catch a rubber ball, while the yellow leaves rain down on them. Emily just reaches out her left hand. The ring is already sitting right there on her finger. I am ready, she tells him. And this is the part that just shatters you. Nicholas Moretti, the stone-cold heavy who strikes fear into grown men, just starts silently crying. He calls the kids over, his voice actually shaking, and tells them the news. Sophia goes absolutely wild, screaming and hugging Emily. But Tommy just freezes. He looks up at this terrifying man and asks, "Will Uncle Starfish be my new dad?" "Yeah, Uncle Starfish, unbelievable." "If you want me to be," he says, and he means every single word. "Look, you and I have been breaking down this whole wild ride together. And the lesson here hits harder than you think. True power does not need to scream, and real love does not need to rush. When you are a good person's doing the quiet, right thing, enforcing a boundary but still showing up with a gentle hand, that tiny ripple changes the whole ocean. And when a guy with real muscle chooses to step in front of the bullets meant for you, entire destinies get rewritten. If this crazy collision of two totally different worlds hit you right in the chest, go ahead and smash that like button, share it with somebody who needs to hear it, and hit subscribe. Drop a comment and tell us where you are watching from today. I want you to really think about whether any part of this story mirrors the battles you are fighting in your own life right now. We sit down and read every single comment, and we honestly want to hear your side of things. It is funny how a story about a dark, dangerous man ends up being a masterclass in providing a safe haven. That is the ultimate twist of fate. So I am wishing all of you out there genuine good health, real peace of mind, and most importantly, a quiet, stable home where nobody ever has to wake up afraid. Keep your heads up, take good care of yourselves and the people you love. And we will be right back here to break down the next crazy story with you very soon.
Emily and Nicholas's relationship is powerful because it does not begin as a fairy tale. It begins with fear, grief, caution, and responsibility. Emily has been abused and controlled. Nicholas has lost his wife and lives in a dangerous world. Neither of them is simple. Neither of them is fully healed. That is why their love must grow slowly. This is an important educational message about relationships after trauma. Love should not rush someone who has been hurt. Emily needs time. She needs her own door, her own key, her own ability to say no. Nicholas understands this. He does not pressure her into marriage or into moving into his life too quickly. Even when he buys a ring, he tells her he is not proposing yet. He simply wants her to know that when she is ready, he will be there. That patience is one of the most beautiful parts of the story. Nicholas' love is not only shown through dramatic rescue, it is shown through restraint. He protects her, but he also respects her pace. He wants to leave his darker world behind, but he is honest that it will take time. This honesty gives Emily room to trust him. For viewers, the lesson is clear. Real love after pain is not about saving someone overnight. It is about helping them feel safe enough to choose love freely. It is about patience, truth, and emotional responsibility. Emily also becomes brave. She does not let fear decide her whole future. She chooses Nicholas only when she is ready. That choice matters because love is meaningful only when it is free. The final lesson is hopeful. Pain may shape the past, but it does not have to own the future. With time, honesty, and courage, broken people can build something gentle, safe, and real.